Hello, my friend. If you're hearing this right now, maybe your heart has walked through a dark place, a place where trust was tested, and the light inside you almost went out. But stay with me for a moment, because I believe sometimes all it takes is a few quiet breaths to realize that deep inside you, there's still a flame, one that has never gone out. It's the flame of loyalty, of faith, and of love. The kind of love that once made you give everything you had, without holding back, without fear, without calculation. And that's why, when that light is betrayed, it doesn't just leave a scar. It awakens something deeper, something sacred, something you might not have known was living quietly inside your heart all along. So now, come with me. Let's return to where the journey began, to the moment when the fire of Aries was first lit by absolute trust, pure, brave, and deeply human. To the place where everything seemed simple but was, in truth, writing the greatest story your soul would ever tell. Aries was born with the heart of fire, warm, honest, and incapable of loving halfway. When they choose someone, it's never just a relationship. It's a silent vow between their soul and the universe. Inside them, trust is not easily given, it's a torch lit by courage. They don't love because they fear loneliness. They love because they want to create light with someone. And once that light is born, Aries gives everything to keep it alive, even when storms come. To them, love is sacred. Honesty is its heartbeat, and loyalty is its breath. Aries doesn't hide emotion. They laugh when they're happy, ache when they're hurt, and trust without hesitation. They don't measure, don't build walls, don't protect themselves from pain. They walk into love the way a soldier walks into battle, unarmed, but full of courage. That's why when they trust, it's absolute, and when they love, it's unconditional, boundless, and frighteningly sincere. But the world doesn't always know what to do with a heart that pure. People see the fire of Aries and assume it will burn forever, needing no care. They enjoy the warmth but forget that even fire gets tired, even light needs to be protected. Aries gives, and gives again, until they become the very source of light others depend on. And yet, few ever stop to ask, "Are you all right?" In that trust lies a quiet kind of sadness. Because when Aries opens their heart, they leave no way back. They give everything, their time, their energy, their faith. Sometimes even the definition of who they are. They don't ask to be loved the same way. They only hope that truth will remain unbroken. For Aries, a promise is sacred, and betrayal, no matter how small, is a crack in their flame. A crack where light still passes through, but it carries pain with it, silent and endless. People often say Aries is too strong to ever fall. But only those who have stood close know the truth. Their strength is born from their breaking. Each time they trust, they place their heart in another's hands, unguarded, unafraid. And if it's dropped, they don't lash out. They simply grow quiet, because deep down, they understand no one can keep a fire they never learned to honor. Yet the miracle of Aries lies right there. They never truly lose their light. When their trust is shattered, they don't die inside, they simply learn how to shine for themselves. Because even in the night of betrayal, they hold on to one sacred belief that every wound has a purpose, and every crack is where the light finds its way in. If you look into an Aries' eyes, you'll see waves of light moving, powerful, yet fragile. They don't always speak it, but inside, they still believe. In people, in love, in life itself. They believe that no matter how many times they fall, the universe will always send them souls who know how to keep the fire. And then, on a quiet night, when faith begins to tremble, Aries feels something shift, a soft stir in the air like the wind changing direction. An intuition, faint but undeniable, that makes their heart skip a beat. Maybe the universe is whispering again, a sign, a message, a change drawing near, something their fire will sense. Long before the mind understands what's coming. In the first few days, everything still feels the same. Morning light pours through the window, the coffee is warm, and laughter still fills the familiar room. But somewhere deep within the soul of Aries, something begins to shift. A delicate wave like the breath of the universe brushes against their intuition. It has no shape, no sound, yet it makes their heart tremble, as if hearing a whisper from somewhere far away. Aries is a creature of perception. They don't need words to know. A glance that drifts away, a silence that lasts too long, a touch that's lost its warmth, all are enough to tell them that something has changed. Their heart is more precise than any compass of fate. It feels when the energy no longer flows toward them, when the air in the room no longer hums at the same frequency. They can hear what is unsaid, see the spaces between two smiles, and sense the chill hiding inside a promise that once burned bright. And yet, the most beautiful thing about Aries is that they still choose to believe. They see the subtle signs, but instead of fear, they respond with a quiet smile. Because they believe in the light inside people. They believe that if they keep loving, if they stay sincere, every distance will melt in the warmth of their heart. They refuse to doubt even when they have reason to, because they know doubt is the fastest way to destroy something sacred. That courage makes them different. They don't control, they don't interrogate, they don't corner anyone into guilt. They listen not with their ears, but with the silence of their soul. When intuition tells them that something is changing, they don't react with fear, they answer with compassion. It's a rare kind of love, one that doesn't seek to possess, but to understand. But silence never lasts forever. No matter how strong, a sensitive soul cannot pretend not to feel. The more they try to trust, the more they sense the hollow spaces trust can't fill. There are looks no tenderness can disguise, and pauses that grow too heavy to ignore. Aries begins to feel that the silence is no longer peaceful. It's the stillness before a storm, a space where words become useless, and truth starts hiding behind uneasy smiles. They don't accuse, they don't rage, they simply observe. The silence of Aries in this moment carries the wisdom of old souls, souls that have loved and lost enough to know. Sometimes, the only way to see if someone is real is to watch how they walk away. In the world of Aries, intuition is the bridge between the human and the divine. It allows them to sense what hasn't yet arrived, as if standing before the door of the future, hearing the hinge creak just before truth steps in. And in that moment, their heart grows still, not because love has faded, but because the soul is preparing for what's coming. A quiet part of them understands. When trust is tested, it's the soul calling them home. If you've ever been an Aries at heart, you'll understand this: they don't need proof, they just need a feeling. And when that feeling shifts, they know. They always know. But instead of running, they sit with their emotions, listening to them like a sad but honest song. Because they know not everyone who leaves is wrong. Sometimes the universe is simply opening a new gate where loyalty is tested, and the heart learns to see truth through the eyes of light. During those days, Aries grows quieter than usual, not because they're weak, but because they're listening to every heartbeat of their soul, trying to discern what belongs to others and what belongs to their own becoming. They don't realize that in just one more moment, truth will reveal itself, and the light of it will both wound and set them free. A deep breath, a lingering pause. Then, the flame in their heart flickers, like a candle before the wind. They don't yet know that this wind doesn't come to destroy, it comes to call them. To destiny, to transformation, to a new beginning where their fire will rise again, but this time in a completely different way. Truth never arrives with a knock on the door. It slips in quietly through a glance, a broken breath, or that one moment when the soul knows something has shattered long before the mind can name it. For Aries, that moment is like lightning tearing through the sky, brilliant, blinding, then leaving behind a cold, echoing silence. It's not the loss of a person that hurts the most. It's the instant, Realization that someone who once felt like home has suddenly become a stranger. The love is still there, but it's changed color. The voice is familiar, but now it sounds distant, like it's coming from another world. And inside their heart, a shard of light breaks apart, falling like glass, sharp, cold, impossible to put back together. People often say Aries is strong, that they rise quickly, move on easily, forget fast. But what they don't see is the fire inside them, the same fire that once warmed others, now flickering in the wind, trembling in the dark. When Aries hurts, they don't cry out, they go silent. A heavy silence, thick enough that you could almost hear the sound of their heart tightening. Because for Aries, betrayal isn't just the loss of trust. It's the loss of who they believe they were in someone else's eyes. They once believed that love could heal everything, that sincerity alone could make someone stay. And when that truth collapses, they don't just mourn a lie, they question reality itself. They wonder if the world they knew was ever real at all. In the beginning, Aries searches for answers. They replay every word, every look, every small moment, as if finding the reason could ease the pain. But in time, they realize no explanation is ever enough. Because betrayal isn't born of reason. It's born of the absence of love. And reason can't heal what was wounded in the heart. So they let go, not of the person, but of the question. They allow truth to drift where it will. They let the tears fall. They let the pain turn itself into light. In the stillness of night, when everything has gone quiet, Aries sits alone, staring into the darkness within and realizing something profound. Sometimes losing someone isn't tragedy. It's the universe showing you who was never meant to stay. In that moment between ruin and calm, they hear something faint, the sound of their own voice, fragile yet honest, a whisper that says, "Don't be afraid. This isn't the end. It's transformation." And then, the light within them changes, hue less wild, more deep, like a flame learning how to illuminate instead of burn. From that place, a new strength is born. Not the strength to fight, but the strength of someone who has lost everything and still chooses to love the world. Aries begins to see life differently. They no longer believe everyone is good, but they still believe goodness exists. They understand that trust is a gift, not a duty. That love is a choice, not a blindness. In the ashes of betrayal, Aries discovers the greatest art of the soul, the art of letting go. Because only when they stop clinging to why can light finally pass through the cracks of their heart. And when it does, they are no longer just the betrayed, they become the awakened. They see love for what it truly is, not possession, but revelation. The night is still long, but it's no longer dark. Something is moving softly, like wind touching the ashes, like the heartbeat of a flame finding its breath again. Within them, a new silence begins to form, not the silence of pain, but of rebirth. And in that sacred stillness, a new chapter quietly begins. After the storm, Aries doesn't explode, doesn't scream, doesn't blame. They simply fall silent. A silence so thick you could almost hear the sound of their heart stitching itself back together. No one really knows what's happening inside them. On the surface, they seem calm, still smiling, still showing up, still doing what needs to be done. But deep in their soul, a quiet revolution is unfolding, fierce, yet wordless. Aries withdraws, not to escape, but to restore balance. They need space between thoughts, between the noise of the world, just to hear the small, steady voice within. They know that if they stay in the chaos, they'll keep reacting, keep hurting, so they choose silence. And in that silence, everything begins to rearrange itself slowly, like ashes finding their way back to the earth. The silence of Aries is not weakness. It's the strength of someone who has walked through fire and learned restraint. They understand that not every battle needs a sword. Some battles require nothing more than stillness enough to let the flame inside rebuild itself. Because when the fire flickers, what it needs is not wind, but peace. In that stillness, Aries begins to see the world differently. They no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, they whisper, "Maybe the universe is giving me a chance to begin again." Layers of emotion start peeling away, one by one, like the skin of an onion, painful, stinging, yet revealing, at the very center, something clear. They realize that some wounds are not healed by apologies, but by returning home to themselves. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, they wake up not from nightmares, but because their soul is shifting. Old memories, unfinished promises, familiar eyes that once made their heart tremble, all drift past softly, like water moving under the moonlight. Aries neither chases them away nor holds on. They simply let them flow, because they know the moment the heart stops resisting, peace begins to enter. Perhaps it's in these silences that a new Aries is born, deeper, wiser, brighter. They learn that silence isn't an ending, but a sacred pause, a space to hear the things we miss when life is too loud, a slower breath, a clearer thought, a faith returning quietly from the storm. And when they finally look back, they see it clearly. Every wound has its own voice, and every loss carries within it the seed of something new. Their silence is no longer armor, it's a temple, a place where fire learns to burn without destruction, where light learns to shine without blinding anyone. The world outside remains noisy, but within, Aries, a profound calm spreads, the calm of dawn after a long storm, that fragile moment between darkness and light, when everything feels a little more real, a little more kind. And as they take a deep breath and open their eyes to what lies ahead, the flame within shifts once more. It's no longer a fire that burns, it's a fire that illuminates. A new chapter begins, not with words, but with an energy both gentle and powerful, the quiet beginning of Aries' own rebirth. In the deepest part of pain, where light no longer reaches, Aries begins the quiet journey of their soul's rebirth. No one is there to comfort them anymore, no promises left to hold on to, only their own breath and the slow rhythm of their heartbeat in the dark. Each beat feels like a question, each pause an answer. And somewhere in that darkness they finally see it. What they thought was loss was only an old shell breaking away, revealing who they truly are: stronger, raw, and more radiant than ever before. It's a moment few ever witness when an Aries heals in silence. No more anger, no more need to prove they're okay. They just sit with themselves, staring straight into the wound as if looking into a mirror of the soul. And in that reflection, they see every mistake, every expectation, every time they gave too much. But instead of blame, a soft smile appears, because now they understand no one ever hurt them as deeply as the times they forgot their own worth. Aries learns how to rise without applause, how to love without losing themselves. They realize that true strength isn't never falling, it's choosing to remain kind after being broken. And when they begin to forgive not others but themselves, something miraculous happens. The light returns. This light isn't blinding like before. It's gentler now, deeper, truer. It's no longer the flame of validation, but the fire of understanding. Aries starts to see the world through eyes that have walked through fire, eyes that know everyone carries a wound. And sometimes, those who hurt us were just lost souls still learning how to love. That understanding doesn't make them weaker. It makes them boundless calm, compassionate, and strangely serene. Through this rebirth, Aries begins to reclaim their energy. They cut the invisible cords, old promises, unclosed memories, people who no longer belong. There's no anger in it, just release. Each letting go brings a piece of their light back home. And slowly, quietly, they return not with noise or pride, but with the steady grace of someone who finally sees life for what it is. When they look in the mirror now, the panic is gone. What they see is peace. Not numbness, but the stillness of a heart that knows everything happens for a reason. Aries understands that every wound is a door, And beyond each pain, there's always another layer of light. It's in that moment they stop seeking validation, stop needing to prove their worth. They know they were worthy all along. No more pretending to be strong, no more forcing resilience. They simply choose to be real, and that authenticity becomes their greatest power. When Aries finally steps out of that darkness, they're no longer a fire burning to be seen. They're a light that guides others through the dark. They carry the calm of a soul that has walked through hell and found heaven within its own heart. And sometimes, on quiet nights, they look up at the stars and smile a smile that says nothing, yet holds the whole universe inside it. Because they know now, from the ashes of pain, their soul was reborn. And that light, their light, is leading them forward into a place where fear no longer exists, only faith in the path that was always meant to be theirs. In the stillness that follows healing, when the heart of Aries no longer holds resentment, something strange begins to happen. The pain is gone. The questions have dissolved. Only energy remains pure, steady, and so real that the universe itself seems to move through them. No one speaks of it. No one notices. Yet somehow, everything around them begins to realign, as if an invisible hand were quietly restoring the balance that had once been broken. For those who betrayed an Aries, an unfamiliar feeling begins to creep in. At first, it's just a small emptiness, a faint coldness that settles between laughs and casual conversations. Then, one day, it becomes undeniable. A quiet chill slips into the heart. They realize something precious is missing, a warmth that once filled their world whole, forgiving, alive is gone. And they begin to understand. When they left Aries behind, they didn't just lose a person. They lost the light that once kept their world from falling apart. The universe has its own way of teaching consequences, not through punishment, but through reflection. Everything we send out eventually returns, not to harm, but to awaken. Those who hurt Aries begin to encounter mirrors in their own lives, moments that echo what they once caused. A cold silence, an empty stare, a love that quietly slips away. And in that reflection, they see it how the smallest act of neglect carries the weight of karma. Aries doesn't need to do anything. They don't wish for regret, or understanding, or revenge. They simply live brightly, honestly, as the fire they were born to be. And that light itself becomes a mirror of truth. Because their energy is so pure that anyone who steps away from it without truth can feel the imbalance echoing back through their life. The universe never truly takes it, only transforms. And in that transformation, Aries becomes an instrument of divine justice. But the greatest beauty of all is this: they never seek for anyone to pay. A soul that has truly evolved knows that revenge is just another form of pain. Aries chooses silence and lets the universe restore the balance on its own. They know that anyone living dishonestly will, sooner or later, be awakened by their own energy in a way, and at a time that only the universe can decide. Meanwhile, Aries continues forward without bitterness, without complaint. They look at life with the compassionate eyes of someone who has known darkness and found light again. And somehow, when they stop demanding justice, justice comes naturally. When they stop needing truth to appear, truth reveals itself effortlessly. That's how karma works quietly, but with perfect precision. There are those who will remember Aries years later, unable to explain why they can't forget. They'll dream of that face, hear that voice in the quiet hours of night. Not because Aries cursed them, but because Aries once touched their soul too deeply. An energy born of sincerity never disappears. It lingers, a silent light, shining in the corners of their memory, reminding them that they were once loved, and that they once wounded something sacred. For Aries, this isn't victory, it's evolution. Because when you can forgive and still keep your light pure, you've gone beyond the limits of human justice. You don't need karma to balance anything, you are the balance. And then, in a new dawn, Aries walks on. No looking back. No waiting for closure. They let the wind carry away what no longer belongs and let the light lead them to the freedom of their own soul. Because deep inside, they know the greatest justice the universe ever gives a soul is not about who was right or wrong, but about the ability to see things as they are and still choose to live in love. From here, their journey moves to a higher realm where there is no darkness left to fight, only light left to give. After long nights of self-healing, a new dawn quietly unfolds within the soul of Aries. Not the blazing dawn of blind passion, but a softer light, gentle, clear, born from the very heart that once burned to ashes. In that silence of renewal, Aries is no longer who they were. The fire still burns, but not wildly, not to destroy. It burns with awareness, with purpose, and with gratitude for the blessing of being alive, of loving, of forgiving. Their rebirth doesn't come with the cheers of victory, but with the calm silence of maturity. They've walked through enough darkness to understand that real strength isn't in fighting the world, it's in standing still in the middle of the storm and keeping your inner light steady. They no longer need to be right, to be understood, or to be admired. They only wish to be true, deep, and free. When Aries is reborn, they see love differently. They no longer seek someone who makes their heart race, but someone whose presence feels like peace. They don't chase fleeting sparks anymore, because they have become the light. They love with the clarity of one who has lost before, and they forgive with the compassion of one who understands the fragility of being human. Love, to them now, is no longer a battlefield but sacred ground where trust, understanding, and respect quietly grow. The new Aries no longer fears solitude. They've learned that being alone isn't punishment, it's a gift. A quiet space where they can finally hear the voice of their own soul. In solitude, they learn to love themselves. They care for their body like a temple, keep their mind as clean as wind, and let their heart rest no longer straining to prove its strength. Because true strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking, standing up again, and still choosing to believe in goodness. As they walk through the world now, Aries carries a new kind of energy, calm, yet magnetic. Their gaze holds something that draws people in not because of charm, but because of presence. In those eyes live kindness, understanding, and the quiet story of a soul that has crossed many storms. They no longer judge, no longer divide the world into right or wrong. They simply see and understand, because they know everyone is on their own journey, and sometimes pain itself is the most patient teacher. A reborn Aries doesn't need noise to shine. Their presence alone makes a room feel warmer, softer. They're the kind of person you can sit beside in silence and still feel comforted. They don't speak much, but when they do, their words carry the weight of truth and experience. They no longer need to win every argument, because they understand some things can only be understood by the heart, and the universe, it seems, begins to favor them again. New doors open, opportunities arrive with ease, and healthy, soulful connections start to appear, not because of luck, but because their energy has changed. When someone lives in truth, when they live in light, the world naturally rearranges itself to meet them there. Aries realizes they don't have to chase anything anymore. What's meant for them will always find its way in its own time. Then, one quiet afternoon, they pause, take a deep breath, and feel their heart overflowing with gratitude. Grateful for the wounds that once broke them now turned into wings. Grateful for those who left for teaching them how to stand alone and still shine. And grateful most of all that in a world so chaotic, they've kept a piece of innocence, a spark of trust, a flame that never dies. From the deepest part of their soul, Aries finally understands. Their journey was never about finding happiness, it was about becoming happiness. And as they walk forward, carrying that light within them, the world itself seems to soften as if the universe were bowing gently to welcome a warrior who has come home. And in that light, somewhere unseen, Another movement begins quiet, subtle, like a breath of wind opening a new doorway to something divine, where the heart no longer seeks, but simply opens to receive. As the journey comes to its end, Aries doesn't look back with pain, but with a quiet smile. The kind of smile that comes from someone who has finally understood. Everything that happened had its purpose. They hold no resentment, ask for no apologies, seek no explanations. They simply feel gratitude for the very wounds that once brought them to their knees have now become the wings that lift them higher. Betrayal is no longer a shadow, but a sacred lesson of the soul. It taught them how to love without losing themselves, how to trust without blindness, and how to walk through darkness without letting the flame within fade. Aries realizes now that they never truly lost their light. It was only resting, waiting for the right moment to rise again, stronger, purer, and eternal. Now they move through life lighter, freer, no longer bound by old stories, no longer needing to prove anything. Every step they take is a quiet thank you to themselves, to life, and even to the souls who once hurt them. Because without them, Aries would never have known how strong, how forgiving, and how profoundly deep they could be. In this light, Aries no longer searches for someone to keep the fire. They are the fire. They carry the energy of someone who understands impermanence, that everything that comes and goes is part of the universe's delicate choreography. And in every ending, they found the wisdom of returning to themselves, to faith, to peace. On certain mornings, they stand beneath the sunlight, eyes closed, feeling the wind brush through their hair. Each breath is proof they have survived, they have forgiven, and they have fallen in love with life again. The light in their heart no longer burns for someone, but for everyone. It becomes a small lantern in the dark, guiding those still wandering through their own night. A soft reminder that no matter how deep the wound, the human spirit can rise, can love again, and can shine again. Because once Aries learns how to love without control, to give without expectation, they become a symbol of freedom. Their flame is no longer theirs alone, it spreads, touching others, awakening hope, reminding every soul that even in the darkest night, light still exists, if we dare to open our hearts to it. And when the night finally folds back into silence, with only the wind and its warmth remaining, Aries smiles once more. In that light lives both peace and gratitude. Gratitude for life for teaching them through both love and loss. Gratitude for themselves for never giving up, even when standing felt impossible. Gratitude for every soul who once crossed their path, each one a note in the eternal symphony of becoming. Now, Aries stands at the end of this journey not to close it but to begin again. With a heart that no longer fears and a light that no longer wavers in the storm, they understand now, the true flame never dies. It only changes shape, spreads wider, and becomes part of the greater light that fills the universe. And before the music fades, I want to say this to every soul listening. Wherever you are, thank you for walking with Aries through this journey of fire, loss, and rebirth. Thank you for feeling, for understanding, and for growing alongside. Until we meet again in the next chapter, where the light will rise once more, born from faith, from gratitude, and from the endless love that lives within every beating heart.